Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 38. In this episode, Jen Swanson reflects on the power of signs to persuade and sometimes inadvertently dissuade. Any five-man electrical band fans out there? Signs, everywhere a sign, blocking out the scenery, breaking my mind. Do this, don't do that. Can't you read the sign?
Hi everyone, this is Jen Swanson. Welcome to Communication Diva. This is the podcast that helps to explore communication in all its different forms in the hopes that you will improve your communication skills and improve your relationships. And I'm coming to you from the inside of my car today as I am heading off to the University of British Columbia. I have a class starting at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I have some errands to run, and I thought I would do a little multitasking here because it is Monday and I have not produced my podcast yet. And I also wanted to mention and to demonstrate how easy it is to podcast from just about anywhere. The last episode that you heard was recorded outside on the street in the rain at night at about 11 o'clock at night when I was interviewing Tiffany Anderson at the Fringe Festival in Vancouver. And they were closing the theater and there was nowhere else to go. So we stood outside under an awning of a nearby apartment and did our recording. Today I am doing this because, again, I have lots going on today, and I thought, I've been thinking about my topic for a while, and I thought I would just take this in the car. This is my Roland RO5, and for any of you who are thinking about starting up a podcast and have a little bit of money to spend on a recording device, I highly recommend this. Just about every single episode, with the exception of maybe 2 of the 37 episodes that I have published at Communication Diva, have been recorded with this device. And it is the only piece of equipment really that I have aside from a computer. And although I would love to have a really good microphone and a mixing board and some of the other items that could be used for podcasting, the sound and what I can put out with this little device are adequate for now. And in fact, I think they're better than adequate. And I heard about this device from my friend Cliff Ravenscraft, who is the podcast answer man, who does this for a living. And this was one of the pieces of equipment he initially recommended. If you can't get anything else, get one of these, the Roland RO5. And I will put a link on the website at communicationdiva.com. You can link to it and check it out. It is a few $100s. I can't remember exactly now because it was last year when I bought this, but it really, really is worth it. And I've used it for a number of other applications, including an oral assessment exam that I had to do recently for the conflict coaching training program that I was taking. We had to record ourselves coaching a client for half an hour, and this was the device that was used. And I've actually had a number of classmates ask if they could come over to my new podcasting studio and use this equipment as well for their assessments. So I really love this thing. It's the size of a cell phone. You can put it in your purse, put it in your pocket, pack it around really easily. And it was really fun walking around at the PNE a couple of episodes ago, Pacific National Exhibition, and at the fair, and just interviewing people, random people on the street. So that was fun. It's very portable. And again, if you're thinking at all of doing a podcast and have a limited budget and perhaps limited space, this thing is brilliant. Anyway, so I have it going on in the car here, and I hope that that you're able to hear me okay. I am driving hands-free. Recording hands-free, driving with my hands, of course. That's pretty funny. And I wanted to talk to you about something that occurred to me yesterday when I was out with my family and we ran into something that really was obnoxious. And I wondered what you would think about this. So it was Sunday after church afternoon. We'd had lunch already, and we decided that we work at two different churches. My husband works at one, I work at the other. So the kids were with me at one, and we zoomed over to his church after ours was done to have a lunch that they were putting on a nice salmon barbecue. And so we enjoyed that. And by the time we were done that, it's hot and sunny here. We've been enjoying a late summer in September. And the kids were asking us if we could go have ice cream at the beach, because my husband's church is near a beach. And so we thought, what a lovely afternoon. We were all together and we could do this. So off we went, and we ended up parking in a parking lot behind an Italian ice cream and gelato shop. And it's quite a large space, and they've just opened a cappuccino coffee area inside. We'd been there once before, I think, maybe a couple times before, I don't know, but it didn't really stand out as anything special. There are other ice cream places in the area, but this particular one was right there, and there was parking. And but it was very quickly evident once we walked into this place that there was something amiss. And there was not very many people in there, for one thing, which is never a good sign on a Sunday afternoon when it's hot and sunny out. And the other thing was the signage. And this is my topic for today. I wanted to talk about the signage. And I really was becoming perturbed with how many signs there were that were saying you can't do this, you can't do that, don't do this, don't do that. They were quite negative. And, you know, one or two signs is one thing, but when you just turn around and look at the walls and all of the signage in a building, especially a place like an ice cream and coffee shop, I really got the sense that all they were interested in was our money. But they weren't interested in us as people. So I'm putting some examples on the website of some of the stuff that was outside. We didn't run around inside the shop taking pictures, but there was actually one bathroom sign that was the last straw. You know, we're leaving, and the sign says "paying customers only" in handwriting on the bathroom doors. It seemed there were rules everywhere we turned around. So we walk in, and there's big signs, multiple signs that said cash only. Okay, that's fine. Cash only, that's fine, no problem. Then there were signs above that said, and there were many of these signs that said no taste testing, no exceptions. And in many of the ice cream shops around here, especially ones that have 100 flavors or whatever, people would like to take a little taste of a ice cream to see if they want to buy a $3 or $4 ice cream cone of that particular type. So, you know, many of the ice cream shops have the little plastic spoons and they give you a taste. Well, this one, that obviously was not in the cards. So there's 110 flavors or something, and you've got to choose one that you would like. Well, so the kids wanted ice cream. Scott and I wanted coffee, fancy coffee. And so we're over where the ice cream is, and the kids are having a hard time deciding. And one of them came over and said, "Do you think I could have half a scoop of one and half a scoop of the other?" Because they put fairly good size amount of ice cream in the cone. And we said, "Well, you can always ask." So she went over and asked, and the young guy behind the counter says, "No, can't do that." So I walked over, and I was very pleasant, and I said, just wondering why you can't do, a little bit of one and a little bit of another, like she'd like to try two different kinds. And instead of saying, "I'm sorry, our policy is we don't do that," or something like "my boss, doesn't allow that," or something, he starts in on this whole song and dance, and he's actually acting out the answer, where he says, "Oh no, we can't do that, because then I would be scooping over here and then running over here to scoop, and there'd be all sorts of people around, and it's too busy and it's too hard." And I'm looking around, and there's absolutely nobody in the place. And I sort of kind of laughed and looked at him and said, "Really? There's nobody in here?" But he wasn't going to capitulate. So So the answer was they had to each choose one. And by this time, I'm looking at Scott and he's looking at me and we're thinking, we're never coming back here. So anyway, they got their ice cream and we sat outside and we're having our cones. But it was very evident, again, even from the customer service that we got, that it was, we want your money, but we don't want you here, right? And if you are here, you're going to behave. So we're sitting outside and we're having our ice creams and having a conversation, and it's time to leave. So we take the stuff back in, and as we're leaving, we pass the bathrooms, and the bathroom signs are paying customers only, with big exclamation marks, capital letters, And then we get outside and, the parking signs are basically, by this time I felt like they were yelling at us. The parking signs were, parking, unauthorized parking, vehicles will be towed, blah, blah, blah. Then there's a sign about, there's a little patio with tables out there, absolutely no pets allowed on the patio. And then the very next sign underneath was something about know this, know that as well. And it left me with an absolutely bad taste in my mouth. I thought, in fact, I was laughing by the end. I thought, there is no way I will ever go back to this place. It is the most unfriendly shop I've ever been into, regardless of how the people were. And really, there was only the one person serving us. And, but the signage was rude. And I got to thinking, some signage is funny on purpose. But I got to thinking about signage, and I got to wondering what signs you have seen and you have noticed that made you stop and think, or that were offensive, or that were just funny. And so my hope and my question is that if you have pictures of funny signs or anything, I would love for you to come to communicationdiva.com and post them in the comments section, and share the funny pictures or the shocking pictures of signs or whatever with us, because I would love to take a look at those, and also to hear your comments about if you've ever been to a place where you've been offended by all the signs. That's just never happened to me before. I've seen signs that were funny, and signs that were really unusual, but never something like this. I remember a stand-up comedian years ago talking about signage in different countries and how it can be really confusing for people who are trying to drive or even walk and take transit in unfamiliar places, when some of the signage is not really that clear. And we have one here in British Columbia, that in the western part here of Canada, that I think is pretty funny when you think about it. To me, I'm so used to it, I don't even think twice about it. But a stand-up comedian was pointing out this sign, and it really is kind of funny. It's a big, giant question mark, and that's it. And, some of you might know what that means. And others of you might think that's just really funny. Like, what does that mean? And it actually is the symbol or the sign here that means information. So if you're looking for information, tourist information, that kind of thing, you follow the question marks and you will find, hopefully, answers to your questions. And that's the idea. But it was just pretty funny to hear the comedian talk about these signs and think, oh yeah, that's true. This is kind of ridiculous. So anyway, that was something that I thought was pretty funny, and you might think is pretty funny as well. I don't know. So there are signs that make absolutely no sense in some places and in other places, and I thought it might be interesting also if you have come across that. I took a picture of a sign when I was in New York this summer that was talking about the snow, and it said no parking within so many inches of the curb. Oh no, no parking within so many feet of the curb when the snow is above 2 inches. And that's a pretty telling sign. That means they regularly get snow that's bigger than 2 inches if they have to put up signs to talk about it. So that was funny. But there are signs everywhere, and signs are a really important form of communication. Looking at the road signs as I'm driving here, and I've thought many times that we don't have very good signage in this city. It is not really, really easy to find your way around in this city. They got better right before the Olympics, and they posted many more signs to help tourists find their way around. But still, I find that you can get lost fairly easily here, and I've lived here for many, many years. But I do find that there is a lack of signage here. I find that there is better signage in some of the U.S. cities that I've been to. I don't know what that's about. I know there's pretty good signage in places like Bellingham, Washington, and Seattle. And the signage in New York was pretty good. The signage in San Francisco was quite good. You could figure out where you were and where you were going. But I do think the signage is very, very important. Here's something. We opened up and rebuilt our church last year. We were out of the building for almost a year and got back into the building just in December. And one of the things that I noticed about our new building is the lack of signage. There's a doorbell on the outside, so that if I'm working in my office by myself and the doors are locked because my office is nowhere near the front of the building, if I'm there, after hours and I'm doing some work and somebody needs to come in for whatever reason and doesn't have a key, it is a challenge for them to get our attention unless they know about the doorbell, and the doorbell is kind of hidden away. Things like on Sunday morning, we don't have any signage up yet for where the bathrooms are, where the nursery is, where the Sunday school classrooms are. And I think that it's a challenge, when you're trying to be a welcoming organization and strangers come in who have never been there before and can't find the basics like the bathroom. So we have some hand-drawn signs around right now, but I think signage needs to be something that we look at pretty soon, because it is, I think it's part of being hospitable and part of being a good communicator is to have signage up that's clear and helpful. And I think this was part of the issue with this ice cream shop for me. Was an ice cream shop and a coffee shop are supposed to be relaxing, fun, welcoming places where you sit down and have a treat and enjoy yourself. And if every time you turn around there's something barking at you that you shouldn't do, I don't know. I found it offensive, personally. As you can tell, because I'm still talking about it and ranting onto you about it. So, but I think also there's a lot to be said for making people feel comfortable and helping to reduce confusion. If you've got decent signage and you can find something easily, and you can and know, when you're nervous or anxious about where you're going. Another place that signage is of vital importance to me is in the hospital system. Now, having worked in the hospital for 23 years and working as a nursing unit clerk at the hospital desks, I can't, if I could have a nickel for every time somebody asked me where something was, I'd be really not having to work anymore, I think. And it didn't seem to matter in some cases how much signage we put up. After a while, when there's too much signage, it becomes clutter and it becomes challenging as well. So I think the people who put up signs have an important job, and I think the creation of good signage is important too. One of the other things that I've noticed sometimes are the store signs when you're driving around that change. And I remember a couple years ago going past a bakery near my house, and and getting a giggle because obviously the person that worked in the bakery didn't know how to spell very well, and they were advertising Valentine's cookies. Valem, V-A-L-E-M, Tines cookies. And I thought, oh my. So somebody doesn't know how to spell or didn't check it out or was half asleep doing it. And now everybody driving by is going to see that there are Valentine's cookies for sale. And, that's not a big deal, but it might be embarrassing for the person that did it. So, signage, I think, is important communication. I have a friend, I haven't talked to him for quite some time, but he owns a sign shop. And for many years, he's a fellow actor, and he's a really fun guy. He was actually trained as a lawyer and decided that family law was a little too stressful, and he didn't want to be in the rat race of climbing the corporate ladder. So he went back to his parents and took over the family sign shop. But the secretary that they'd had there for years and years and years, who had been there forever, even before computers came in, was a lovely woman, but had absolutely zero spelling capabilities, which is really humorous if you are thinking about it, because she worked in a sign shop. And a lot of his stress came from having to proofread every single sign that was ordered because this woman couldn't spell, and it was very expensive to fix her mistakes. So you can imagine that perhaps good spelling would be an excellent qualification for working in a sign shop. Anyway, pretty funny stuff. So I am aware that I'm kind of rambling here, but I hope that this has given you something to think about, and that as you're moving about your day and commuting or transiting or walking around, that you take a look around you and pay attention to signage, and let me know what goes on where you are in the world, and how good your signage is, and signs that make you laugh, signs that drive you crazy, and signs that make you mad too, because that was my my little thing yesterday, was that I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm still on the road. I'm not anywhere near where I need to be. I'm beginning to think that I'm going to have to abandon my first errand and head right to the university, because traffic around here is crazy. We're waiting for a new bridge to open up next week, or maybe this week actually, and once that happens, I'm hoping that some of the volume will be reduced, because we have multiple bridges and lots and lots and lots of people in cars, and sometimes it's crazy. You could get somewhere in 40 minutes if there was nobody else on the road, but it's an hour and a half as a result. So we're hoping the new bridge will make a difference. It's a toll bridge, another whole big controversy, but I'm looking forward to a little bit of a lighter commute in the coming months, so we'll see. Anyway, this is Jen Swanson. I really appreciate you listening to this podcast. I hope that you have a great week. Please come and visit me at www.communicationdiva.com. And until next time, take good care.